to you all. For those of us who haven't met, my name is Roy Lilley, and I'll be chairing this afternoon's hearing. What can I tell you? For those of us who haven't met, I'm a former NHS Trust Chairman and a former Health Authority Chairman, Local Authority Councillor, and all that kind of stuff. I'll be asking my colleagues to introduce themselves to you before we get started.
I'm John Lister. I'm not actually part of the panel. I'm the researcher working with the inquiry, and I work the rest of the time with London Health Emergency, which I've been doing for 30 years, which is a pressure group for the NHS.
I'm Toynbee. I work for the Guardian.
My name is Frank Wood. I'm on the Executive Council of Unite, and I've worked in the NHS for about 26 years.
I am Sue Richards. I used to be Professor of Public Management at the University of Birmingham, and now I'm co-chair of a campaigning organisation called Keep Our NHS Public.
Hi, I'm Louise Irvin. I'm a GP at Lewisham. I'm chair of the Save Lewisham Hospital campaign, and I'm also on the BMA Council, although I'm in a personal capacity in that respect.
Hello, I'm Lady Klein. I work at Guy's and St Thomas's. I'm not representing them. I worked in the NHS for over 20 years and here in the capacity.
I'm going to move on straight on now, if I may, to local MP David Lammy, who's just joined us. Mr. Lammy, would you like to come and join us, please? Please don't steal the microphone.
Chair. Can we have order of speakers?
I'm not sure if we can, actually, but I'll announce them as they come. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Lammy. Thank you very much for joining us. You're the Member of Parliament for Tottenham, and no doubt have an interesting postbag on matters when it comes to the National Health Service. We're all yours. Can you take us up to perhaps 25 and leave some time for questions, please?
I'm sitting here in Whittington, but you will know that the local hospital here serves my constituency as well, and serves folk from Turnpike Lane across to Hornsey, Crouch End, and I need to just say that I was born in that hospital, that I have two aunts that worked in that hospital, many friends over many years. And I suppose I'm here because I think there's a central question as to whose NHS is it? Who does the NHS belong to? Is it acceptable for my constituents, some of them amongst the most deprived in the country, to read about the future of their hospital in the newspapers? Is it acceptable for the local MP to find out that there were plans to sell off parts of the building, to sack nurses, to downsize in the newspaper? Whose NHS does this belong to? I think it's quite clear. At the moment in Haringey, there are decisions being made around crisis for the very vulnerable in our community. And in that very vulnerable, I'm thinking of those who are suffering from mental health problems. There is a crisis emergency centre at the St Anne's Hospital, where historically, for many years, people in crisis in the London Borough of Haringey and Enfield can go. And I'm talking about people who know that they are in the midst of a psychotic episode, who know that their bipolar disorder is at its most extreme, and they can present there and they can get support and help from mental health specialists. Well, again, those individuals had to read in the papers about the fact that that centre would be closed, that they would now have to make their way up to Enfield to the North Middlesex Hospital. At worst, they would not have a dedicated crisis prevention centre. They would have to present at A&E with the rest of the general population. I don't pretend to be a mental health expert, but I have a feeling that it is not acceptable for those who are suffering from psychotic disorders, from bipolar, from very difficult mental health diseases, that they should present with those who had too much to drink on a Saturday night, with those who are, you've been in a car accident or something, you've broken your arm. Is that the place? Or do we want a dedicated service for those with mental health problems? My view is that we should continue to have a dedicated service for those with mental health problems. I'm deeply concerned about who it is I go to at the moment with this new reconfiguration to challenge them about the decisions that are being made. We have these new CCGs, and I have to say, I met the head of my CCG, a new head, a few weeks ago at a meeting. She had not contacted me. She had not made herself known to me. I know that she's not entirely responsible for some of the standards issues that we still have with some of our GPs in Tottenham. I'm told I've got to go to NHS England. The landscape is confusing. Very, very confusing indeed. It's confusing for me as a local MP. God knows what it's like for my constituents. And I just say, whose NHS is this? Whose idea was this? Because the other part of this is that this was not something that proceeded following democratic discussion and debate. I was in the last general election. I would have thought everyone in this room participated in the last general election. And no one in this room could put their hand up and say that any of this was up for discussion in any of the party manifestos. There was no discussion, from my recollection, of health in the last general election. And yet here we are, with no consultation and discussion that's appropriate on the Whittington. Now we won there, with no consultation and discussion on some of the challenges that I've got in mental health just across the borough. I don't know where to go to challenge and complain some of my concerns about some general practitioners in my constituency. We still effectively have some of our old single-handed stuff going on, where the quality just is not good enough. Where do I go? Who is looking at this on a daily basis? Who is analysing the records? Who is looking at mortality rates? Where do I go if I'm concerned that a GP has not picked up ovarian cancer? I say that because very sadly 5 years ago my mother died of ovarian cancer. And it's a cancer that's sometimes called the silent cancer. It's not silent, in fact. It requires GPs to fully understand when a woman presents with bloating or presents with lower back pain. Actually, you've got to connect these two things together. You've got to really listen to what she's saying about her body. Often women of a certain age put up with a lot of stuff. They get used to putting up with a lot of stuff around their health. They need a GP on this. Who do I go to if I'm concerned that GPs aren't picking this up? Women are presenting in my constituency with stage 3 ovarian cancer, when had it been picked up before at stage 1 or 2, they would have survived. Who do I go to? Anyone in this room can tell me. I'd be very, very grateful. Because that is what is happening in my constituency at these times, with these changes. Changes that were not democratically mandated. And if I can just return to those with mental health illness, because I really feel for these people. And I have to say, I also feel very tragically, and I have to put this meeting on notice, there will be a tremendous tragedy that will make national news. And I say that here. There is terrible bed blocking in mental health right across London. The ability for people in crisis to actually get a bed in mental health now is next to impossible. If you exit a hospital for a weekend with your family, intending to go back to that bed, believe me, that bed will not be there for you when you return. There was a CQC of St Anne's Mental Health Facility in my constituency just a few weeks ago, and they reported that people were sleeping in exclusion rooms. These are rooms where someone experiencing a serious crisis is held for a few moments while staff can bring that person under control. It cannot be right that in the 21st century you remove a mattress from a proper ward bed, stick it into a small exclusion room, and you expect our most vulnerable to sleep in that room. And quite rightly, it was picked up by the inspectorate. That is what is going on. And right across this area, in Enfield, in Haringey, and in Islington, huge deficit budgets in our healthcare system. And of course, there's another mantra that you hear a lot from healthcare professionals, and that is that what we're wanting to do, Mr. Lammy, is we want to move services into the community. The elderly are best served in the community. They want to stay at home. The mentally ill don't want to be in a hospital setting. They want to be assisted at home. Why do we need these people coming in to our acute hospitals? They need to be at home. You find me an NHS executive who won't give you that mantra. But what's our response to that? Well, of course, instinctively, yes, of course we know. As I did with my mother when she was ill. She would very much like to have died at home and to have been supported at home. But it costs to be supported at home. And we know that what's really going on is a shunting from acute into local authorities. Let's use their budgets for this. Let's use adult social service budgets to support this. And what is happening to adult social service budgets in Islington and Haringey and Enfield and across the way in Camden? They're being cut.
And Barnet.
And Barnet, all of them being cut. And we know that when we campaign to keep the library open, and the library's kept open, there'll be another budget where the elderly particularly can't campaign as effectively, and quietly it's cut back. So this idea of community service is a deceit. It's not happening. And what happens is people end up very isolated, extremely dangerous if you're dealing with those with the biggest mental health challenges. And I speak as someone who sat with a family who had their son stabbed to death outside one of my secondaries because care in the community went badly wrong. And the gentleman with mental health issues was not properly being supported. So this is very, very serious indeed. So I want to see a proper comprehensive system, coordination between acute and between community services. I'm afraid it does take funds, and I'm concerned about deficit budgets. This shunting from one service to another is unacceptable. But more unacceptable is a lack of any democratic discussion.
Mr. Lammy, can I just ask you to end?
I will just end. by just saying...
If you overrun, you take someone else's time.
Absolutely. We have a 10 million population now that we're moving to in London. A 10 million population requires appropriate health services. Very concerned to see cuts in the south of St Helens, cuts in the west, Ealing and around. Potential, I know they're still looking carefully at the balance between Walfrey and the North Mid and the Whittington. Cuts at Chase.
I'm sure there will be panel members that would like to ask you some questions, so I must ask you to stop. Yes, please.